Every now and then when we go on site visits, you meet someone pretty special. And when we were at Gleneagles last week, I did just that. We did a number of interviews, and one of them was with a guy called Tom, who's in charge of Gleneagles' alcoholic affairs. So his important role really bases around getting alcohol in, and then of course, more importantly, getting it out. We thought he was so cool, in fact, that what we did was ask him, could he turn someone with an infantile palate like myself into, if not a whiskey connoisseur, someone who could appreciate the finer drams. I'm not sure that he did it, but it was a lot of fun, and we put it together as quickly as we could, so please do excuse any photographic or audio errors. We literally were just making it up as we go along. I think it's fair to say that I have quite, as far as liquids are concerned, an infantile palate. So I like simple things, childish things, like fruit pops with vodka in them. But seeing as we are here in arguably the most famous hotel in Scotland, and Scotland is the home internationally of whiskey, although I suppose potentially Kentucky and Japan might have something to say about that. And we're lucky enough to be here with Tom, who's in charge of Gleneagles alcohol in, and more importantly, out. So we thought it might be interesting to ask him, where am I going wrong as concerns whiskey? So,
I'm not convinced you're going anywhere wrong with whiskey.
Yep.
I think you're approaching it and thinking about it as too much of a snobbery product. I think you've got an idea that you have to drink it in front of a fire, like Grandad did, maybe with a drop of water, definitely no ice.
Yes.
I honestly believe there's a whiskey out there for everybody. We've got over 300 in the building, and I'd be shocked if we couldn't find one if we spent all day together looking for one that you wouldn't enjoy. But to kind of appease your thought of being something sweet, we're actually not starting in Scotland. We're going to start in Kentucky with a whiskey called Malacon. Now, this does look like you're probably going to buy it, drive in a pickup truck and go back to your trailer. But that's just the branding. It's beautiful liquid. It's made from corn, so it's quite sweet.
It looks like it needs a brown bag.
Yeah, but some of the best things do.
But I love that.
So it's bottled in bond, so it's about 50 ABV, so it's strong. But it's smooth, it's sweet. You wouldn't expect it to be so strong.
So when you drink it, there's no smelling, no nothing. You're in. What's the story?
So give it a bit of a smell.
Yep.
Don't put your nose straight into it, especially with something that's strong.
Yep.
Because the alcohol is just going to burn all of your senses.
Okay.
So you kind of just want to slowly edge it up.
From distance.
A little bit of distance, and
okay.
then kind of edge it up. So there's a couple of different processes, but I think because I'm trying to get you away from this snobbery of whiskey, I think kind of just fire it and do what's natural. The smell, you should get loads of sweetness.
Yeah, there is loads.
Yeah. Fruit. Not kind of that big whiskey hit that you'd probably necessarily think or associate, but we're in America, so we're a lot fruitier, we're a lot lighter as the whiskey start. This is always something that really pleasantly surprises people.
Right.
I think because it doesn't look so premium, and because we're such a premium establishment, and because I talk about it so passionately, people are always a little bit shocked.
It's a popular choice.
We're getting there slowly, yeah. When kind of I'm walking around on the rare days these times, talking to people about whiskey behind the bar, this is definitely something that I get them to try and could normally get them to go away and have a little sample of it. So give it a little sip.
Okay.
We can give you some water if you like, but I think you'll be okay. Gives you a little bit of smile.
That is punchy.
It is punchy.
I'm not going to lie, that is punchy, but it is delicious.
It's good, huh?
Yeah, it's delicious.
And it's not completely not what you're expecting.
No, because there's that, when you normally drink whiskey, it's so all-encompassing.
Yeah.
I never pick up any of the
Nuances,
notes that you spoke about there.
Yeah.
There's never any of that. It's just
booze and
just weight.
And I think I don't think there's a bad whiskey on the market, but I think the worst thing you can say about a whiskey is someone like yourself when they say that just tastes like whiskey, because that's got every single bad connotation you've got about whiskey.
Right.
So what we've got is some quite big, bold flavours. We're going to do some interesting things with some of them, but the idea is to give you focus points on flavours that you'll probably enjoy.
Yeah, okay.
Rather than you thinking about Bell's or Johnny Walker Red or Grant's, which is automatically what you're thinking about whiskey, where there's so much depth in single malts, and that's why they're so popular now.
Yeah, and I think it's, as you say, it's those initial sort of reactions, those initial experiences,
Yeah.
that shut you off from any desire for further exploration?
Yeah, completely. Which is
So
why
you just close it off.
we'll do a couple of kind of neat tastings, and then we're going to put Coca-Cola with a very expensive malt, which some people aren't happy with. I think it's one of the greatest things in the world, and just kind of break those ideas and concepts about what whiskey is or what whiskey should be.
Well, I think your idea yesterday about rum and coke, that there's never any potentially not particularly negative connotation about the expense or quality of the rum.
You'll get people that will spend a lot of money on a rum and coke because they want the best rum and coke they can possibly get. But if you want a whiskey and coke, you want the cheapest one. It's a completely kind of counterproductive point about spirits that are made in very similar processes and take the same amount of aging and cost about the same amount of money. Why would an 8-year-old rum and coke, which is old for rum, be good, where a 15-year-old whiskey and coke be a bad thing?
Right, okay.
They've both got the same...
Again, that plays into that idea that there's so much expectation about how you should approach whiskey.
Exactly.
That it feels like more of an effort.
Yeah.
It feels like there's more to get wrong.
Yeah, completely. And there isn't. There's no way to drink anything unless kind of you're getting it in the eye like he's guy in the airplane.
Yes. I've got a drink problem. Thank you, Ted Stryker.
So... I'll take this one away.
I've instantly got the image of the old woman like covering herself in petrol.
So we're going to go to one of our local whiskies. Okay. This is probably my favourite whiskey that's distilled close to the hotel. Blair Athol. It's about 15 miles down the road. Not something that massively popular as a single malt.
And can you explain single malt?
Yeah, so single malt is whiskey from one singular distillery. So it's made from malt, obviously, rather than grain or corn like our first one was.
Yep.
And it is produced only at that distillery and is just a liquid that's produced there, not necessarily the same cask. So, for example, this is 12 years old. There will be whiskies in there that are older, but there can't be any whiskey in there that's younger. And it can only come from the Blair Athol distillery.
Okay.
So something like Monkey Shoulder is 3 different single malts. So then that's a blended malt. And then for a blend like Grant's or Bell's it contains single grain whiskey as well. So it will be 70% single grain and then a mixture of different single malts to get those flavours.
Okay, so also the idea that a single malt is that's considered the top of the tree.
Currently, yes.
Is that there's a sort of stamp of approval that you know specifically what you're getting.
Yeah, so a single malt has one specific flavour profile. It's all from the same place, so it's kind of like a vineyard.
Fine. And that was when you go for a nice meal, and one of my favourite things is not being an expert in alcohol at all. Is I love to hear, we always go with the wine pairing or the wines because look, this is your job.
Yeah.
You know it far better than I do. You already know the meal. Just show us the way.
Yeah.
And it's great when they've gone, especially if they've gone overseas and they talk about the slopes and the rainfall and everything else. I'm assuming because so much quality whiskey product is so close.
Yeah.
How do you possibly stay sober as concerns the amount of tasting you must be doing? I'm drunk right now.
Yeah, I can't claim to stay sober. No,
you're the biggest advocate for Uber in the local area.
Yeah, Uber's 10 a penny. The buses turn up once every 5 hours, but there's Ubers everywhere. It's about control. It's you taste, but I've tasted a lot of them a lot, and you kind of pick and choose your moments. But
right.
I'm not having whiskey on my cornflakes, despite all the connotations of us Scots.
Yes.
But that could just be because I grew up in England and have this horrible English accent. But yeah, it's difficult. It's definitely something that you could slip into and drink a lot, but
it must be also exciting.
It's fantastic, and it's part of the culture, and kind of having so many different things and being able to go home and kind of enjoy so many different whiskies from so many different places, and them to all be so different is really cool. And there's a whiskey for almost every time and every moment. Last night, for example, I went home and had a very, very rich whiskey and a cigar outside while I was listening to vinyls, and then there's some days where I'm just going to go home and tan a bottle of Jack Daniels and go.
You've ticked all of the bar manager hipster boxes.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right.
I know, right?
That's the lot.
I've hidden the tattoos, so it's fine. It was J. Cole as well. That's really bad, isn't it?
Yeah, that was the last box.
So,
Okay, brilliant.
after being self-deprecating, let's move to some Blair Athol. So this is another rich, quite sweet one, but it's got a lot more depth of character because we're moving on to Scotch. So it's been distilled in a slightly different way and aged in a slightly different way, and because it takes longer the aging process takes longer in Scotland because we're not as warm in Kentucky and then not as suddenly cold.
Yeah.
What will have a similar profile at 6 years in America is at least 12 years over here.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
it takes a lot more depth out of the wood. So you get kind of those stronger flavours that we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
because that's the oak interacting with the spirit, and then the wheat that we use is completely different to the American wheat, and kind of the terroir of where we are and how we produce stuff. It has an effect, despite kind of people thinking that only affects wines. In whiskey, it affects it in the later process when it's aging, rather than this liquid that's going into the barrel.
Right, okay.
But it's another rich one. Sherried, kind of Christmas cakey. So we're going from the sweet, and then we're going to slowly move through
To the hardcore.
to the hardcore stuff, or the more. But you get raisins and kind of plums and caramel. Really quite nice honey scent.
It does immediately smell like Christmas.
I know, right?
Are you one of those strange flavorists who can, there's that story of being able to make it not only smell like a burger, but make it sound like it's just come off the grill just on a bit of paper?
It's all about the power of persuasion. If I talk to you about the whiskey before you smell and taste it, you're going to get those notes because they're the big, strong flavours. Whereas if you went in there thinking,
It smells like Christmas pudding.
this smells like whiskey, you're just going to smell whiskey. Which is the great thing about kind of doing the tastings, and then you develop a pattern that you're looking for those flavours, or that you understand them a little bit.
And is there it's difficult, every person's different.
Yeah.
You said you've got 300 whiskies. Is there a profile that sits well for Gleneagles, or it's just
Everything.
Everything.
Yeah, there's so many different flavours and so many different people. It's more about finding the right whiskey for the right person than finding the right whiskey for the resort.
Which comes back to your conversation.
Yeah, because we don't want to sit there and tell you, you drink this because it's good, you drink this because you like it.
Okay, perfect. I love it. Let's try this.
That one didn't make you smile as much as the first one.
No, but it's because it's more. I'm coming to it from a process of
Yeah.
thought as well as just drinking. That is more traditionally whiskey for me.
Yeah, definitely.
But again, so now I'll compare that to the other. The concept. So with the other, traditionally, as you said, there's so many ways of doing it. Would you have it just on its own, with ice, with water?
This one you're probably going to drink with ice or Coke, or it's very American, so probably Mountain Dew.
Gatorade. I'll have a Gatorade and mellow corn, please.
Exactly. No, so mellow corn is kind of your traditional boilermaker. You can have a shot of it, drink your Coors Light.
Fine.
Blair Athol, we do the same in Scotland, except it's a half and a half, and you have a little shot and you have half a beer. But Blair Athol, you're going to set by the fire, but I think one of the things that I really like about Blair Athol is it is Scotch, and it has got that strong flavour like you're talking about, but it's quite approachable in that process. It's not
And Scotch, as opposed to just whiskey.
It is just from Scotland. It's a
that's it.
Tanfield whiskey,
Fine.
only from Scotland.
Fine.
But it's quite powerful as well. It's got quite a richness to it. Whereas the Mellocorn would probably get lost in most things.
I can definitely feel like I've had those 2 half mouthfuls already.
Yeah.
Without doubt.
But that makes it quite diverse, and you can use it in different ways. And you're going to get slaughtered for this. Blair Athol goes really well with chocolate milk, because it's got that rich Christmas cakey flavours to it, and then because it's got the strong enough depth and flavour that it cuts through that richness, it would make a really, really good milkshake or hard shake.
I have one of those images in my mind of early sort of 80s Disney's movies where something happened and the two things crashed. You made something that gave you superpowers and you were unable to recreate again. How did you possibly? Are you always looking to, push at the boundaries of what is considered acceptable, or and so sometimes you come up with things like that. You're like, this actually.
Yeah, some of them happen by mistake.
How did that happen?
So we're all used to kind of going to burger places now and getting American whiskey and Oreo milkshakes and things like that.
Yes.
And I've always been a big fan of that. But I didn't have an American whiskey at home. I had an open bottle of Blair Athol. And the thought process was, what's the worst that could happen? It turns out it was really good.
This moment. Yeah. Well, you had to explain it to the world.
Yeah. There's a little bit of shame in that. But, it was tasty, it was good, and it's something that I've been getting people to try. And
Love that.
And that's what I mean about whiskey being approachable. It's kind of, there shouldn't be a fear about kind of playing with it. And you'll sit at home and run out of tonic water, so you'll have a gin and squash. We've all done it. We've all done it. There's no exactly just at the end of the party. Yeah. And I think whiskey works in that way, and you can have it with lemonade, and it's got the depth. And we're going to try the next one with some soda water, just to kind of move it through. And
do you find that obviously you have traditional whiskies, they have traditional profiles, and those people who've drunk it for a while, they know what they like to a certain extent. As new ideas, new flavours, new locations, on some of these we can see. How do you find that people are open, or is it quite a lot of work for you to sort of get them to explore? It varies massively.
There's some people that are never going to try this. There's some people that, when I tell them if they want ice or water or however they want it, there'll be a old boy next to them that's been drinking whiskey his whole life since he was 14 and will mutter under his breath, "This is sacrilege, who is this guy?" And yeah, there's definitely that sense to it, but a lot of people are new to whiskey and a lot of people are afraid of it, and making it approachable and kind of encouraging people just to drink the spirit is what excites me and where the fun is, and where people are receptive, because it is important and it's tasty and it's such an inherent part of Scotland that for it just to sit there and not be drunk, and for it just to be going out of trend for younger people, is devastating. And kind of putting weird things with it and making it accessible and putting it in cocktails gets new people drinking it and appreciating it. And gin's huge at the minute because of cocktail culture.
I was going to say that would have definitely was going to be my next question, was how is the, which you mentioned yesterday, how is the renaissance or the real upsurge in kind of small micro distilleries for things like gin? Is that further making it difficult, or is it kind of does it show a path for whiskey in the future?
It shows a path for the whiskey, and kind of people are concerned where their spirits are coming from. The same started with food, and it kind of moves through, and the whole gin thing started with cocktail culture because vodka just didn't exist in the older cocktails. So gin started being a thing, and gin went from something your nan was drinking in the pub in the late 80s, early 90s in a wine glass with Schweppes and no ice, and that lemon that came out of the plastic container straight from cash and carry, to something that every girl puts on a Tinder profile, loves gin, or it's become such an inherent part of culture. And you think 20, 30 years ago, gin was the least cool thing in the world.
Isn't that funny?
So it just trends, and I think Scotch and whiskey are kind of slowly taking that mantle as well. And obviously not everyone's going to sit and have a whiskey and mixer all the time, but it's something that's definitely becoming more acceptable.
Yeah, I've definitely got certain friends. A friend of mine works in media and PR, and he has a couple of whiskey brands and everything else. And I think it's his kind of target market is very much in that sort of thinking. Is how are we making it relevant? For now.
And yeah, that's important, I think. And we're kind of going to go a little more classical with this one, but still a little off-piste. I'll give you a little taste of it, but whilst I make the drink.
Alright, brilliant.
Because this is a strong whiskey flavour.
Is it?
Yeah, this is lightly peated. This is what I tend to drink in the pub most nights.
This is your tipple?
This is my tipple.
Okay, wow. So that is already a ginormous expectation.
We shall see. So the whiskey itself is pretty strong. I think you might struggle with it a little bit, but it's got a richness to it. It's peated.
You already know me well.
So
I will struggle.
We're moving on to those whiskies that have got that smoky flavour that kind of is quite off-putting, but it reacts really well to other things because it's got such a strong flavour. So it's about kind of making it lighter and palatable. But give it a
Ooh,
yeah, you smell it straight away.
I do, but it doesn't smell kind of as classic whiskey, the kind of thing that would put me off. The other glass feels like, like I said, low tumbler, hard-bitten detective.
Yeah.
All his options are closed. This one last case is his last chance to succeed. That's the vibe. This doesn't smell like that. It smells a little bit more like I should have something tweed on.
I was going
to say, he's definitely got the vibe. So let's try this. Feels exactly like the name of the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it feels like it belongs in this kind of bar.
Yeah.
But not in a bad way.
Yeah, no. It's rich and it's refined, but it's kind of
Yes.
It's very specific.
So that would be my second favourite.
Okay, fantastic. That's really cool.
Yeah, that
That's
would
really-
be
I wouldn't have picked that, but that's really cool.
That would have been my second favourite. So the Mellocorn, yes. Then this one, which is actually, it's nowhere near as punchy as the others.
Yeah.
The others were like, ooh dear.
So we're getting to whiskey that's a little bit older as well. So it's kind of developing that richness and it's getting to that cognac-y point.
Which I quite like.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that was really delicious.
I've got high hopes for our last one then, which we're going to do some cool things with.
Okay, fine. Amazing.
But so this is basically just a whiskey and soda. Really simple. You'd normally drink it with kind of cheap blended whiskey, but using single malt gives it real depth. And you've got
Your thought process though makes perfect sense. Best in,
so it comes out tasting
best
better.
out.
Yeah, and this is a really Japanese process of drinking whiskey. A whiskey highball, just soda and single malt. Something the Japanese love as a culture, to the point that you can get it in cans out of vending machines in Japan.
Together with my other favourite, Pocari Sweat. So there's a drink that needs to go back to the Blue Sky session that came out with the marketing department. It looks great.
It looks cool, huh?
Yeah.
And it would tend to be made with Japanese whiskey, but kind of the depth of Beaumont 15 and the fact that something like Beaumont 15 is in every Scottish pub means that that's what I drink.
Okay.
You're probably not going to get the same ice.
It's interesting you spoke about that culture of hiding deficiencies in the ingredients in. Is it this equivalent of a sort of well done steak?
Yes.
So if the quality of the meat is poor, you have to have it well done because it nukes it.
So if you've got a high-end product, you're focusing on that spirit in itself. So if a chef makes a really good quality meal with meat, beef, it tastes like beef.
So this is a blue or medium rare.
This is a medium rare
highball.
Steak. Yeah, it's a medium rare Aberdeen Angus steak.
Perfect. Oh yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah,
That's not bad.
sippable. You can kind of sit in the pub and drink it.
Yeah.
Normally after about 3-4 pints, when it starts to get difficult to make a pint of beer.
Yeah, I mean that would be. I mean, I don't think two of these, and that'd be the end of that.
But it's cooling and refreshing, and kind of takes you to a different place with whiskey, which you wouldn't normally associate. You could sit there and drink that on a warm summer's day, whereas we think of Scotch and whiskey as something you only drink in the winter.
That's true. I hadn't thought of that. That is, but then I think it's really ingrained with the idea of having a ginormous dog and a huge fire.
Yeah.
Like it feels like those elements. Have you got these? I'm afraid I can't serve you.
2 pints of Guinness and a pint of Best and a little shot of whiskey.
But that's the vibe.
Yeah.
And it must be, because it's such the opposite. Isn't it funny? Then you've only because you've mentioned it, I've thought that gin is a young, fresh, stick berries in it. The glass is clear. Lemon, it feels fresh and vibrant and exciting. And because of the nature of whiskey, it's a darker colour.
Yeah.
It comes with, it's warming.
But you don't have that opinion of rum.
No.
Rums, mojitos, and Cuba Libras, and Havana, and parties, and nightclubs, and a pretty cool product. And kind of whiskey just doesn't seem to break that process. And I think the change of it comes from this side of the bar with what bartenders do with it, and kind of spending time talking to you about it. But hopefully with that one, you quite liked it on its own.
I did.
And should have noticed like the really bold flavours that come out, but you lose that heat and that punchiness. And
7 minutes what? Are you how close is the one?
I've just had a call in my ear.
Have you? Yes, I've been phoned.
Okay, so we've just had the call that Tom has to be done by 1, and the time is now 12:54. So we're going to rattle through these last 2, but I didn't want you to think that I was bored because I'm actually getting in quite deep and I'm already really quite drunk. So just to talk us through, basically, we spoke about it very, very briefly yesterday, the influence of foreign ideas, if that's interesting, but that's classic Japanese. And you're able to apply those to sort of more traditional scotches and stuff.
Of course, and Japanese tastes very similar to Scotch. Most of the distillers came over to Scotland and learned their trade here.
Oh, that's interesting.
Japan's got a very similar landscape to Scotland. You've got mountain ranges, you've got similar temperatures, they've got their own barley and peat. So it's a very similar environment to produce whiskey. But Japan isn't as tightly regulated in what they can and can't do, so they can use different woods, and so they can push the boundaries a little bit more, which I think is why Japanese whiskey is becoming so trendy and cool because
okay.
they've got that ability to change up what they're doing and do some cool things with it.
And I mean, we spoke briefly about it yesterday. Do you find that Gleneagles is like, it seems like from what you said, is a super supportive location to push forward the boundaries of what's acceptable, chocolate milk and everything else, but in a really positive way.
It's just about kind of engaging the guest and kind of getting the staff to think differently about it and approach that subject with it, which kind of when we go to the Lagavulin. Which is a very fireplace whiskey that people, 16 years old.
Okay.
It's what Ron Swanson from Parks and Recs, that's his big whiskey, and so that's the association it's got.
Ron Swanson. When he's, I can't move.
Yeah. So he's the ambassador for Lagavulin. Well, obviously the actor is Nick Offerman, but that's kind of exactly his target market: woodworking, old men with beards, fireplaces.
Yeah, he released a book of woodworking.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another conversation. We'll geek out on Parks and Rec accordingly.
So the first one we're going to try is basically just a simple whiskey and coke.
Also, can I ask you a very, very quick question about the ice cubes?
Yes.
Is there something special about round ice cubes? Because I associate large, round Death Star, that's no moon, style ice cubes with whiskey. Is there something in that?
You can put this on film.
Yes, absolutely.
It's an aesthetic thing. There was a thought process behind the fact that because it had a larger mass area, it melted slower. And
yes, that's what I was thinking.
But because 50% of it will sit above the water, dilution ratio is about the same.
Fine.
But it looks better.
It's an urban myth.
Yeah, kind of.
Right.
But there's a lot of those in the bar world. We like to perpetuate those.
Fine.
It makes us feel really important.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you. No taste test required for me.
Yeah.
If every now and then I do something naughty and have a can of Coke.
Yeah.
It will be a can of Coke. I much prefer it to Pepsi.
Yeah.
Are you led by that in terms of whoever is supplying the hotel, or you would have carte blanche to say this? We have to have this one, and this is why.
We pick which one we want.
Okay.
But a lot of it is customer driven. People ask for Coke. They don't ask for Pepsi.
That's interesting. Okay.
That's very much what happens in this country. Well, to be fair, in Scotland, people ask for Iron Brew. We're one of 3 countries in the world where Coke isn't the biggest selling soft drink.
What are the other 2?
I can't remember, and you can ask that. India's definitely one, and I can't remember the other one. It's probably Iceland, because they don't even have a McDonald's.
No, I did not know any of that.
Did you not?
No, that's...
You can go online
Brilliant.
and see the last McDonald's in Iceland. I think it shut in about 99. And
because they're so healthy.
Yeah, someone bought the McDonald's and put it in a chamber, and there's a live webcam.
But also that's Iceland, so a Big Mac was €73.
Yeah, and it came with a side of sulphur smell.
Okay, so
this is basically just a Lagavulin and Coke, but Lagavulin's a really, really smoky spirit.
Okay.
And it loves sweet things.
Oh, that is delicious.
That's cool, huh?
That is, I'm not going to lie.
You didn't want to like that?
No, it's like you've given me a blowback through pants. It's got a very sweaty, slightly inappropriate gym feeling, but not in a bad way.
So if you try the whiskey on its own now,
Yeah.
which is a great way to start.
But that's like I would return to that.
Yeah.
Like I would, there would be that was.
It's cool, huh?
It is, but really, it feels exactly what I spoke about. So I'm aware of my, like I like vodka and apple juice.
Yeah.
Right. So I have childish palate. That feels like an adult collection of flavors and tastes, and the way it's completely changed what the Coke tastes like. It's really interesting.
Yeah. But it's still at the base of it got
Yeah.
that flavour that you'd expect from a whiskey Coke. So it's a potent whiskey, as you probably smell. It smells like fireplaces and cigars. Leather Chesterfields.
There's no doubt, like I just think it feels like when you're drinking whiskey, you're drinking a lot less of it.
Yeah.
Like to drink, like just even the tiniest sip would be enough, and then I could return to it.
Yeah.
You're not, like if I'm drinking a gin and tonic, you 2 or 3 mouthfuls and that's the end of it. There's absolutely no way you could do that.
But then with the whiskey and Coke?
I mean, you could probably return to kind of, student union bar antics and be face down in the pond at the front. Having a guy in a kilt going, I'm sorry, you can't sleep here. So this looks more like my kind of drink. British public school posh peaky just out there. Thank you, well done. That is delicious. So that it's right. This is the great. This is the drink equivalent of how I perceive Gleneagles. Right. So no pressure, but not only have you achieved this, it's so on brand and on message, it's ridiculous. So it features all of the great things about the traditional.
Yeah.
Yet it's new and progressive without being needlessly so.
Yeah.
And it just feels like everything that we've experienced here in the 2 or 3 days we've been here.
And I think we've gone from something that you kind of liked to a couple of things you weren't convinced about. And kind of we've gone to more and more traditional whiskies and kind of gone higher up on the price point to something that is really cool, accessible and tasty. And
like I would order that.
Yeah, exactly.
Without doubt.
And we started off with you not liking whiskey, and I'm kind of hoping that we finished with
Yeah.
you thinking that you can go into a bar and order whiskey.
Tom, I know you've got to go.
I have, I'm afraid.
I would love to say that I think I've had enough to drink now to say I love you and I love your work. Thank you very, very much indeed. We're super, super excited to be coming back here in May with one of our clients, and I look forward to Tom destroying absolutely every one of them in the most positive way possible. Love Tom, love Gleneagles.